everyone, welcome back to JP's Budget Collecting and another episode of the Indie Show. Tonight we are finishing Black Hammer Reborn. I got my whole crew with us. We're only starting 10 minutes late because Justin was actually close on time, which is a minor miracle. But yeah, But Daryl was here and ready to go on time as always. Yeah, he's the good member of this crew. And then there's these two. This guy and this guy.
They don't call me minor
the whole time. So
I'm gonna eat the whole time, yeah.
They don't call me minor miracle LaRoque for nothing, That's college nicknames.
Emphasis on minor.
That's right.
If any of you ever want to think about moving to the middle of the country, living in Missouri, I just want to give you a breakdown of today. This afternoon, about 3:00, it was 79 degrees here. It's now 30 degrees and it started sleeting. So it's supposed to be 25 overnight or something. So
the weather doesn't know.
And then by Thursday, I think by Thursday, I think it's supposed to be back in the 70s. So, if you want to live in the Midwest and experience all four seasons
in one day,
you. So
Tennessee's not far off from that, honestly. Tennessee. Yeah.
So yeah, we're talking Black Hammer Reborn, which I'm pretty sure you could have read this whole thing in about 25 minutes. I know that I read all four of these issues faster than I read either of the individual issues you guys just talked about on the X-Men. But we'll save thoughts for the whole series till the end. But your impressions of this final volume of Black Hammer Reborn before we dig into the details. Daryl, what did you think of these final four issues?
Agree with you about how quick it read. I actually started reading it at 8:00 and thought it might take me up until about 10, and I was done by about 8:45. So. And that was when they stopping and talking to the kids and stuff too.
I was going to say, did you take a nap?
But I mean, it was enjoyable. I think the art took a step backwards from the last volume in this one, though.
Okay. Justin, what about you? What did you think of this third volume or part 3 of Black Hammer Reborn here?
Yeah, I mean, just high level, I really enjoyed just how the story kind of, weaved in and out of a lot of craziness that goes on, which we always get from Black Hammer. But I mean, it definitely left me wanting more. And I agree with Daryl. Some of the artwork I think might have been a little bit of a step down, but I think I was just so kind of wrapped up in the story, most of the time it didn't bother me too much. But I think there were moments that I think I was hoping for something a little bit better with maybe some of the single or the splash pages and things like that. We do get some cool moments, but yeah, overall, I think even though it's a fast read, I still really enjoyed it.
Okay. John, what about you? What do you think of this? Again, for those that are joining us, before this volume, John had always pre-read everything. John is now reading it with us.
It's true.
Yeah.
What did you think of the last part of Reborn here?
So I guess it suffers from all the things it's trying to emulate, which is Marvel DC events.
Why would you want to emulate those?
Right. I think he's trying to do a Black Hammer event, which is currently what's going on now, the end or whatever they're calling it.
We're setting up the end is what
right. And so this event sets up that event, I guess you could say, the crossover event. So it does suffer from some of those things. But was I entertained? Was I excited? Was I enjoying the ride? Absolutely.
I think I agree with everything you guys said. It's solid Black Hammer in terms of, what we've come to expect from this universe, from these characters. I will say for me, it suffers from the fact that the title is sort of a lie in terms of Black Hammer Reborn. That's kind of not what we're getting here. And it does suffer for me, because at the end is and now you got to read the event that's coming, because it's just ultimately all of this is set up for that.
Right.
And I do, not that it's not good, but it does suffer from the fact, for me at least, from the fact that it is just basically a setup event. Like you said, it's 12 issue which we won't talk about the whole thing, but overall it's like, or we will at the end, but it's like a 12 issue setup as opposed to its own kind of story, I feel like. And like that for me is the biggest weakness, but it's still quality Black Hammer in a lot of ways. We're getting the characters that and in this issue, we even get some of the other characters that we know and love from the beginning a little bit. I have some thoughts about some of that, but we'll dig into that as we go. But so we pick up, let's see, let me get back to the start of this. We pick up where we left off after we got kind of we jumped into a side where Colonel Weird was last time, but we pick up from a few issues ago with Skulldigger and Lucy kind of making a prison break here. They've Colonel Weird let them out and then left them to their own devices, and they're trying to find Dr. Andromeda, or their Dr. Andromeda is from their universe that's been imprisoned here, and make their escape. So what do you guys think of this whole sequence where they're trying to find in their dock and making their escape? That Skulldigger's kind of had this as his plan all along, that he wanted to get caught, and now they're making a run for it. John, I'll let you go first this time.
I mean, it's obviously a multiverse trope that we're deep in the multiverse at this point, but that's kind of the fun of it. What makes multiverse stories fun is the iterations you get of all these different characters. So the prison has some of that play for us, and I think is it terribly original? No. Is it enjoyable? Yes.
Yeah. Justin, what about you? What do you think about this?
Yeah, which is like this, all these characters, same thing. Like none of it's really original, right? They're all pretty much kind of mocking or mirroring every type of hero we've read about, throughout comics. But yeah, I enjoyed like seeing some of the other characters. Like we saw Warden Wing, and he's like just smoking a cigarette, and he's like, "Who the F for you?" Like, and she's just like, not ours. Keep going. Is what Skulldigger says. We got to find the right people. So yeah, I like it. It kind of picked up. I don't know if, I guess, yeah, since this is coming out on a monthly basis or whatever, giving that little bit of a recap, but otherwise I don't think we really needed it, but just a quick reminder of it. But yeah, it's fun.
Daryl, what about you? What did you think of this beginning here?
I want to know, this is where I think the art had a failing. Why is Skulldigger like kind of portly now? All of a sudden his face looks completely different, and that's where I immediately noticed.
You mean, yeah, this guy is not the Skulldigger that we know.
Yeah. So I didn't, I like the aspect of like the jailbreak and stuff, but when we left off last, they were like, we're gonna find our Dr. Andromeda, and then we're gonna go kill Colonel Weird, and that's where it left off, and that's kind of how it starts. But as it goes along, that's not what the motivation was really. It's like, so they left you with this like great line in the last one, and I don't feel like it really quite picked up on that as much as just like, okay, now we're breaking out still. We're gonna go get the Dr. Andromeda and go, I guess, his base on this reality. Like,
yeah, basically.
So I don't know. Some of it just seemed unnecessary to some degree. Some of the stuff that happens.
Yeah, I feel like it's a solid. I think it's a solid sequence in terms of, like John said, it's following all the tropes here. You're in the multiverse. You're trying to make a run from the villains who are the heroes, who are the villains because they're trying to stop you. And it's like, and of course you're like, you got to go to the same place on the different universe to stop the same thing you stopped before, kind of thing. But yeah, I don't know. I think it just, for me, it suffers from the thing I talked about beforehand, is because it all is kind of just setting up what's going to come later. But we get to the evil, what was the evil Dr. Andromeda's base on this universe, and this sequence made no sense to me other than it was like, oh, we got to show Barbalian from this universe. So we're going to throw him in here. Like this whole, there's 2 Dr. Andromedas, and Sherlock Frankenstein's role here, and all of this. What did you guys think? Like, I thought this was the weakest part of this particular volume, because it was like, it made no sense for him to be like in the position that they're in here.
Right.
Justin, what did you think of this? Like,
Yes. Yeah, no, I the fact that they even say Barbalian, as he reveals himself, says, "Sorry to have to lie to you like that, Lucy. I just needed to tag along to make sure you got here in time." Like, even that didn't really give any reason really as to why him, why there was this background of why was Barbalian doing what he was doing. Like, it definitely was something I feel like I just kind of read over, like, oh, okay, okay, and then like quickly forgot about it because it didn't really connect anything from how I took it. So yeah, I agree. It was definitely a bit of a weaker moment. I wanted, this is just a really random moment. I wanted to just point out this scene right here. I did laugh out loud at, because when they were, this is going back to the chase scene, but when he says that he has to, he says, "We're screwed." He goes, "No shit." I read it as "No shit, Sherlock."
Yeah.
And I just wanted,
on purpose.
that stood out to me, where I'm like, oh, I wonder if Lemire was going for that.
The letterer did that on purpose. Everyone, that was all on purpose.
You know, they were all laughing about it, like, oh, we're gonna put this in here. Anyways, just a sidebar piece there.
Daryl, what did you think of this whole reveal as we get to the start of the as we get to the, I can't even think of the name, not observatory, whatever, the place that they're at, the base that they're at, and everything. What did you think of this?
I agree. This is kind of the stuff. It's like, it was very fast paced, so it kept me engaged as I was reading through this real fast. But it does just seem like kind of unnecessary, other than like, oh, here's a Barbalian appearance, even though it's not the one we want to see. But it didn't make sense that it's like, why did they need Barbalian to get her to the place she was going anyway? You know? So there's just some weird, and I mean, like I said, it does make for like a little interesting twist of like, that's not Dr. Andromeda. If that's your Dr. Andromeda, who is that? You know, it's like, dun, dun, dun. So that, I mean, there's like some pacing like interest there, but it comes across as just kind of not necessary, you know, like, because it doesn't have a real payoff.
Right. And I think that's that quality of events that we always kind of have to shuffle through sometimes. And I don't I don't want to like make light of it, because it's important, and but at the same time, you're all right. It's not, it does drag. It does pull the story down, because you're not in the moment with the characters and the emotion. Instead, you're like, what's that all about?
Yeah. It's like he's doing too good of a job of recreating modern events instead of like some of the ones that we enjoy, because you get this kind of crap in modern events. It's like, wait, that doesn't make sense. And you get in all the tie-in books, and it's like, you know, all these things that don't actually add to the event. And I feel like it's like, dude, those parts of the event you could have left out. You know. But ultimately, what it's leading toward is Lucy getting her hammer back, and we see her transforming again, and we find out who the real villain is behind this effort to bring back.
Did anybody guess this? I'm assuming everybody did, but did anybody? I absolutely assumed
this was a surprise.
You know, I didn't pick it up.
Yeah, I wasn't really ready for it.
I wasn't really thinking of it ahead. I don't. Well, I generally don't really think ahead, though.
I guess
just in life.
Yeah. Nice addition there, Justin.
I wouldn't say that I was ready for it like a few pages before, but when they were like, "Here's the real villain," before I turned the page, I was like, "Oh, it's her dad." Like, So like right before, I kind of like, oh, I got it, but like,
So for me, like as I was going along, I was like, oh, there's the version of this character and this character. I'm like, well, we're waiting for the big bad. It's got to be Black Hammer, right? It's got to be the evil Black Hammer.
Yeah,
I think I was still trying to figure out Barbalian and why he was there.
For me,
maybe
like I
pretty
felt
off.
like going all the way back to when Sherlock Frankenstein was like, "Oh, you think I don't know how to deal with a Black Hammer?" When they caught her the first time, and then we hadn't actually seen him yet. It was like, okay, like that was like for me, that's where it was like as we kept getting closer, it's like, okay, this is gonna be the reveal. So no, I was not. And then obviously when they're like, "Who's the world?" The page before it was the world's greatest villain. I'm like, Black Hammer. And then I turn the page and it's like, yeah. So, but yeah, we see Dad, or so she thinks. I mean, obviously it looks just like her dad. It's clearly a alternate reality version of her dad, and he's doing this to reunite with his family. So he, instead of him dying and her mom being left behind, they died and he got left behind in this universe. And so he claims he's doing this to reunite with her, and yet I'm not sure what that accomplishes by destroying the rest of the multiverse. What did you think of his motivations as we go through this, the rest of this? Daryl, I'll let you go first this time.
Yeah, again, it's like it doesn't really like add up, like you're saying. He's doing this to like reunite with the family, but like you just said, it's like at the same time, he's gonna destroy everything to have like 10 minutes with him, or so, or does he think that like he'll get him to reunite and then he can stave off the anti-god again or whatever? I mean, it is unclear what his motivations truly are, other than just reuniting with like Lucy and as we see like his version of his life.
It's like, oh, I want to reunite and destroy the universe or the multiverse. So, Justin, what did you think of this?
Yeah, I didn't know if it was maybe like a mixture of, yes, he wants his family back together, but also like, since he's this villain version, maybe he has this hunger for power, and this kind of gave him the excuse to like go above and beyond and create all this havoc, and maybe not really believing that he'd ever see his family again. He talks about how it was, just explaining how it was the family that died instead of him, and he's so torn, and I don't know, or it was either that or he's just so blinded by anger and frustration that he just went off and doesn't care about the repercussions. He's just like, I need to see my kid and my wife again, and I'm going to do whatever it takes. Even
we do get this panel like after he like apparently kills Skulldugger of him.
He called me dad.
He called me dad when you yelled at me for killing this guy.
What a great scene! Yeah.
So he's clearly like, two screws short of,
he's looking for the positive. He's a positive.
Yeah. So, John, what did you think about our new Black Hammer here and his motivations and what we're seeing here?
Well, I mean, it's classic, multiverse villain need, right? It's always built on something like this. I mean, Into the Spider-Verse, it was Kingpin playing that same part. Like it was identical. Mm-hmm. So the rationale doesn't bother me at all. It's like a classic trope. It's how do you use it, right? How well does the writer utilize it? Because obviously we all watched Into the Spider-Verse and we're like, that's freaking awesome. Of course the villain would do that. It makes total sense. I can't question it here the same. I don't have any issues with it. How well does the writer use it? I don't know that I feel this villain's intensity the same way I felt Kingpin's in that film. So that is a flaw in the writing for me. Not the trope, but the usage.
I thought about the Kingpin and Spider-Verse as well. I guess the difference is the Kingpin and Spider-Verse thought that he would just pull a wife in, and that was going to be that. He didn't realize that in the process he was going to destroy the city or the world at the same time. But here we have this character.
Do you think it would have stopped him though?
Do
you think it would have changed his mind if he knew that? Because I don't think it would have.
I mean, if he thought that he was gonna maybe just see her for a minute and then all die, maybe not. But like, I don't know. I guess it was different than like he's willing to bring in like the anti-god, which will destroy everything in the process. I don't think Kingpin would have necessarily been willing to like sacrifice his life. If it happened in the process, he probably wouldn't have been not worried about, like, he was willing to take the risk. If it blows up and I get my chance, whatever. But his goal would be to get the wife and everything work out to where he just gets to keep her and be with her, right? But in this case, he's like, I'm trying to get my family back, but at the same time, I'm also bringing the big cataclysmic thing that's going to destroy everything, like pretty much right away. So what? I'll get like 5 minutes with them or whatever. So I don't know. It just,
Well, I mean, he claims that he can like protect them, that they'll be all that's left. It's basically,
Yeah.
which again, I don't know what kind of life that is. But yeah, I don't know. I find it sort of inconsistent in terms of his goals, I guess. Like you said,
Mhm.
like the way it's being used, like the trope is fine. It's just the way it's being used here. I find his approach to the whole thing somewhat inconsistent. And then, but when he brings up her kids, Lucy falls for it. So I mean, because she's so desperate to get her kids back. What did you? We'll start with one of the parents, and John, what did you think about this whole? She lost her kids. She thinks they're gone. He's offering to go back to her.
I really hoped that she was trying to trick him. I really hoped that she was smart enough to see past her grief.
Yeah.
So that was a little disappointing to me. I wanted her to be emotionally more mature than him, and more clever than him as a hero than the villain. And I think it would have made for better twists in the story if she were playing him to find his weakness, to figure out how to stop him, and was able to push past her grief in that way. But yeah, I mean, I get it. That was the moment when I really wanted some originality, and I still didn't get it. That was a frustrating moment for me.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'll let Justin go ahead. What did you think about this?
Yeah, I don't know. I think I'm still like, I feel like I didn't get like her want for her kids from like the last few episodes. Like I know it like broke down the family stuff, but like, she talked about wanting to be Black Hammer and all these other like priorities and things like that. And I don't know, for her to now just be so driven to want to see her family again and everything else, I guess I wasn't really like sold on it. That this would be the thing to drive her so much that she's willing to like work with this bad guy Black Hammer. I don't know if that's just not what I pulled from what we've been reading, as how important family was to her with her powers and other priorities and things that she's kind of experienced in life as she's gotten older. So I don't know. I just really wasn't sold on her doing this, but I mean, obviously she moves forward with it and thinks that she can make things work out. So,
Daryl, what about you? What did you think of this?
Yeah, I was kind of with John. I was hoping that she was just kind of playing along for a minute, but also like she was curious about her family because that was her motivation, like to even pick up the hammer again. Was like, well, was the kill Colonel weird? She thought the kids were just dead, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I did think did she go visit her mom and the kids were dead in the last book? I couldn't remember.
Yes. Like,
okay, so I was wondering why the mom knew that like all this was happening, because I thought it happened a lot better. That's right. I do remember that. Can we go on to the next part though, with the back to Inspector and Sector?
Well, yeah. And 1 second, just because I want to give a thought here is, like, I was super disappointed by the Lucy as a character. I find this Lucy, like, the more we've read it, and I realize, like, even with what we've seen in terms of the backstory of why she quit being Black Hammer, inconsistent with the Lucy that we met previously. Like, to me, like, the Lucy we met in the earlier volumes would have been more like what John talked about. Like, still, like, striving for something. And I realized she was motivated even then about finding her dad and finding her family. But, like, she was also motivated by doing the right thing in a way that, like, I feel like the weakness of character that we're getting here in terms of her, like the way she's just given up on anything other than her, on really anything other than her kids or anything at this point, disappoints me in terms of the way he's writing her here. And we'll see that as it plays out through the rest of the volume. But so yeah, we get end story. We pick up where we left off with their little post-credit stories of Inspector Insector and her son. And we basically get the portal we saw in the last of those story. They go through, and we're not sure where they're going to end up just yet. But so we do jump back to that story. So Daryl, was there something there that you wanted to talk about?
I just didn't like how they went back to like the traditional in-story comic style for this part. This part, I think, should have kept with that like backup story style, because really we are kind of viewing these 12 issues as really one whole book, right? I mean, like at the end. So I feel like this part, these 2 pages or 3 pages, should have been in that like backup story style, at least into the jumping into the portal part.
Yeah, like, well, we got all but, like, if you flip back, we got Joseph going through the portal in the post story, and then the first page is him. First of the 3 pages is him going through the portal in this story. Like, we already had that, so
too much. Yeah,
you could have just added Inspector going through the portal, and then picked up where we pick up here later, which is when they're actually in one of the worlds that's part of the story.
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree with that completely. That assessment completely. This is a very odd 3 pages. Anybody else have any other thoughts on that?
I just like the artwork of this one page that of him actually leaping into the portal. Yeah, I thought that was
some of the better art in the whole portion of the book, because there's some other flaws we haven't really talked about on the art, but yeah. And then we get, so Lucy's left with her dad, and then we jump back to Sherlock and Dr. Andromeda and Skulldigger trying to figure out how to shut down the portal. And for the smartest guy in the universe or whatever Sherlock Frankenstein's supposed to be, or in the world, like, he just like, I'll just shoot it. Because that
a page out of Skulldigger's book.
I mean, so what did we think of this? And obviously the consequences is that, now all the multiverses are colliding here. What did we think of Sherlock just resorting to the I'm just gonna blast it? John, what did you think of this?
Yeah, not the best character moment, and I do think there's several of those all through this volume where I just feel like it's close to being really good. It just can't find it. It can't hit it. I mean, just have Skulldigger grab the gun off his belt and shoot it for him, and you solve that story problem, and we're on.
Yeah.
You know, it sounds like something that a near death Skulldigger would do. So, throw the bone at him. I don't know. But I do love the art in the next bit there when you get that sort of fractured multiverse all kind of peeling together. I thought that came out really, really well. You get all these people like peeking in at one another and kind of realizing the thin veil connecting everybody. I thought that was cool.
No, I think that was really well done. And then even the where you get now, it's like multiple cities colliding with each other.
Yeah.
And that's a really good page. Justin, what do you think about that little moment?
I definitely, the gun shooting to resolve things was a bit of a I guess I wasn't expecting it, and I also wasn't expecting it to work. But clearly things
didn't work.
Well, I guess it didn't work, but something like happened here. I do like the little montage, I guess, of seeing all the different worlds kind of coming together. And then the doc saying, Pandora, we've opened its box. Just a cool set of sequences, I think.
Yeah. All right. Daryl, did you have anything on this that you wanted?
No, not really. I like the apes. There's always got to be some apes in it.
I mean, it's just kind of the apes, like, huh? We get some glimpses of different versions of some of our characters and stuff. And yeah. So we jump back to Lucy and her this evil version of her dad visiting her real mom, and I love her mom's reaction. This panel where she's like, "You are nothing like my Joe." Like her face, even though it's like so badly drawn that it works. It's like, but and having to talk some sense into her daughter. What did you think of like that? Like mom having to bring Lucy back. Justin, I'll let you go first this time.
The mother's great. She's not having it. She's also not afraid. Like she's just like, you're not. Your eyes are dead, as she says. Which, throughout this whole thing. Well, I guess he does have. You can see his eyes, I guess, in some of these panels, but for the most part, they're like, whited out. Which was what I took as like kind of the darker or evil side of him or whatever. But I guess here he does have his pupils. I mean, a little bit of a family moment, mother-daughter there trying to do what's right. I like that Lucy kind of snaps out of it and says that this is my real mother. Meanwhile, he's willing to just move on and find the next. Let's just find the next mother and we'll make it all better. Not really thinking or concerning himself with anything else. I like these scenes. And some of the drawing, I mean, you definitely get a little more detail and like. The mother-daughter hug, I think, is the one that stands out to me the most as far as the artwork goes. I like the detail there and the emotion. It is funny though, because if you go to the very next page, the rumble, you kind of get this like
jarring.
this other artwork. So a little bit of night and day.
Yeah. So Daryl, what about you? What did you think of this?
Yeah, I think the art on these pages with the facial expressions and stuff and getting the emotion out is some of the best of the book. And like Justin pointed out, the one where they're like hugging and stuff. I didn't really notice it until now about like the eyes of the mask. It's like they can turn the white on and off,
right?
Or something, And I didn't really, and like Lucy does it in like every panel of that, the page with the hug. It's like the first panel she's in, her eyes are white. And then they're not white, so she can cry. And then they're white again when she looks up. And then they're not white again when she looks down at her hands.
Yep. Yeah, that's a good point.
John, what did you think about this?
You just barely got me. I think I was frozen there for a second. This is the best emotional sequence. We're finally getting something with a bit of a more gut punch intensity to it. And I love Mom, like pulling all the shenanigans stop. This is ridiculous. Don't make me come over there moment. Like don't make me slap you beside the head moment. And it leads to a cool reveal when we see Black Hammer has lots of hammers.
Yeah, we're going full Hal Jordan, Parallax, all the
the implication that he's just been killing hammers, that he's been collecting them, and that's a cool reveal that makes you just go, oh.
Another Lucy's in particular.
Yeah, right.
That's the implication I got out of it.
His own kid, right? Yeah, absolutely cool. And to your point about Inspector, I would have loved if across these 12 issues, little by little, he started breaking the fourth wall and joining the book. Imagine if like he was very rigidly in like a backup story in the first one, and the backup story starts to fray, and then little by little he's joining our world as the multiverse is crashing. Would have been a better, I think, tool than the way it happens.
Yeah,
I can see that. Station. So speaking of which, we jump to the end of this particular issue is Joseph and Inspector arriving at the farm, or at least the current version of the farm. And we see Abe finds them out on the road, and we see that he already has sister and dad. And basically that's where kind of the next issue kicks off, as we follow sister and dad as they arrive at this. We find out what happened to them this whole time. What did we think of this reveal and this new version of the farm? John, I'm going to let you go first on this because you're the one that's been most invested for the longest in Black Hammer.
The simple answer is, I've got I need a cure, and its only cure is more farm. Just give me all of it. I love the this. I'm all about this. More of this little kid version. I'm all about it. I love Captain's oh shit moment there at the end. So yeah, I mean this is the fever cure that I needed all along. Just give me more farm.
Yep.
So Justin, what about you? What did you think of us return the discovery, which I don't think was a real surprise that he actually just sent him to the farm? What did you think of this?
Yeah, I mean, anytime, it's definitely just something about seeing Abe back in his own space and reacting in a way that Abe would react. Got me excited to just know how this was ending. Going into the next one, I know we go into kind of learning more about all the details of how that winds up, but I was looking forward to this. And this is what Black Hammer does. I mean, anytime it brings these characters back in, I appreciate, or I enjoy the reminders of like all the things we lived through and the flashbacks of seeing a lot of the stuff. And I know we get some more like flashbacks and cool moments, even redone moments, I guess, along the way. But yeah, anything on the farm or anything relating to like the core characters like that. Like even though we got Barbalian earlier when we were talking about it, like I was still excited at first because I'm like, oh, Barbalian, he's like going to make this big, this like he's the main character again somehow, and yet he ended up not being anything. But like I was like, I love Barbalian, like his history and everything, even though it was a different one. So anyways, I was happy to see this.
Daryl, what about you? What did you think of this?
Yeah, I was happy to see Abe get out and have his like, just kind of like, it's coming, it's all coming back to us. Like,
Again,
keep catching back up, like they keep pulling me back in, kind of thing. But I think it's best when he realizes like it's kind of later that you really get it. You see it there when he's like, oh shit, but it's really when he sees Inspector and Sector, who is just completely outrageous looking. That I think is his moment of like, oh my gosh, what are we gonna do now? Which is all explained, as we go along.
Yeah.
Like
so
why he would
basically the whole next issue is the story of them getting sent to the farm, of daughter and dad ending up on the farm, Rosie and dad ending up on the farm, and them ultimately meeting Abe and getting basically the background of this new version of the farm.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how much detail you guys want to go in on this. I think it's like
this for me is the juice. I don't know what you want to skip over here. I love
this might be my favorite.
Freaking reveal.
Yeah.
Oh, I want you to get to the reveal. So here's my you guys talked about your excitement at seeing these characters, but we only actually see, in my opinion, we only see Abe. And I think that's a bit of a disappointment to me. Is there's no Barbalian shown here.
Well, we get
hang on. Okay, and we get a version of Gale and Sherlock, but not our version of Gale and Sherlock, because they no longer exist.
Right.
Like they took their memories from them and just made them little kids.
Yeah.
And that's a disappointment to me.
Okay.
Because I'll be honest, because Gale's my favorite character of any of the main characters.
She won't stay like this long, though.
A little girl with no
give him a couple issues. Don't let. I mean, it'll go.
He'll have a cigarette in hand.
She'll be smoking before you know it. Don't worry.
I know, but you guys talk about that. This was the meat, and that was the excitement for you. Like the only characters we get.
That's not the excitement for me. The excitement is not Gale and Sherlock and Abraham. It's the pages in between.
Right. So we'll get to that reveal. But in terms of just, I had to just comment on the fact that we go back to the farm and it's like, I was just like, where are my characters?
It's not your farm.
So I was a little frustrated by the way this plays out in terms of just what we're what we're seeing in terms of those characters. Now, we do get the big reveal in the middle of this issue.
Yeah.
What did you guys think of the big reveal that they are in a world that is no longer what Madame Butterfly has sent them to is no longer part of their multiverse, that is this whole event with Anti-God, but actually the real world, or what we perceive as the real world. What did you think of this? Justin, I'll let you go first on this one.
Yeah, well, so first I do want to clarify the portions I liked, and I like this other thing we're getting into, but the seeing Abe and seeing Tammy and getting the same like we don't talk about that around here, like, you know, Abe trying to be undercover as usual, like doesn't want to like let anybody know, and just Tammy being herself, like referring to her ex-husband, like it all picked up the story of where we had kind of left off. So that part is what I just feel like comfortable with, like I'm back home in that regard.
I guess for me, it's just that Tammy and Abe were my least favorite parts about that. So, like, of all the characters that were on the farm, those were the two that I connected with the least.
Yeah,
and those were the only two that are still there. So
right.
Like, oh.
The only ones that stayed the same.
No talkie-walkie, nothing. No, that's fair. As far as like the reveal goes, this was fantastic. I love each of these panels that they show. The fact that we are in our world, the real world. I think that Lemire does such a good job with like teetering between these, you know, being outside the or the fourth wall and everything else that he does, like with very unique writing styles that you don't get in your typical comic books. And for him to make references of certain things, and then obviously like showing what was it, 8 panels altogether of these huge moments, just negative and positive things that happened, you know, in our history. To reveal it that way, I think was a really, really powerful way. I mean, as opposed to just like saying like we're in this other real world, like, or whatever. So I thought this was really well done. I also was not expecting it at all. So to me, this really was like, you know, a shock and just flipping through this. So yeah, I thought this was great.
Daryl, what about you? What do you think of this reveal here?
Yeah, it kind of felt like I liked it because to me it almost tied in with way back when we looked at like Limbo and the story worlds and all of that. It's almost now kind of like this multiverse story happening over here. That is the like comic book universe. And then we have like our other story universe that could spread off into different directions. And then our Limbo of like ideas that got lost isn't really affected by Anti-God and that kind of stuff. So the idea that now the farm is on the real world is pretty interesting. I think it opens up some interesting opportunities. I don't really know where to go with it exactly, because it's like you don't want to start introducing too many fantasy elements into the real world, because then it ceases to be the real world, you know. So it'll be interesting to see where this goes.
I think is Abe's reaction at the end when he sees Inspector and Sector, he's like, oh crap.
Yeah, that's what I was saying before.
Yeah. So John, what about you? What did you like your full thoughts here on this whole reveal and everything?
Okay, full thoughts you want. All right, let's buckle up this sucker, man. No, I mean, firstly, it's tapping into several tropes that I really enjoy. And we read Fables together, and this has major literals vibes, where there was a crossover in Fables where the real world and the writer of those comics is a character there, and he's got writer's block, and so the comic is kind of like collapsing on itself, and definitely getting a little bit of that there. Obviously, this is the we have to go back lost moment as well, where it's like, oh, what is real, what is not real? We're back on the farm, but you know, characters have made the choice intentionally to go there now. Love all that. And I love kind of the grounding force that this becomes, right? Because now it's like, it was very kind of fantastical comic event stuff, but this, yes, it does, Barry. Everything does. Yeah. This grounds the comic in like real choices that we're going to get in a little bit here, where characters have to look at what do they really want? Like, what do they really want out of this? And I
Right.
think those 8 panels, like Justin said, from Hitler through the moon landing all the way through Vietnam and the Berlin Wall, really amazing, really cool. And the speech that's being given there by Abraham is perfect.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I will say that, like, despite what I said at the beginning of this, like my disappointment of the fact that it's really just Abraham and Tammy are in a version that we know and love, at least here. The reveal, the way he handles the lead up to and the reveal that Abraham gives is fantastic. Like, it's really, really well done. And I agree with everything you guys have said about when you turn those pages, the art's just a little bit different. The way the setup is, it just works really, really well. I just wanted cigarette smoking, drinking Gale. That's just my disappointment. And instead we get happy little girl Gale, and I don't know that I like this version. So
And I agree, she's not as entertaining, but for me there's the besides just like giggling at it, like watching her and Frankenstein like doing silly things running around the farm, or that amazing cover with the two of them, like
right, the cover is great, but they
cat.
don't really do much in this issue in terms of
Besides just the general emotion of that, like there's a part of me as a fan that has been waiting for her to have joy in her life,
like peace,
and yes,
that's really
and this gives us that,
because she was just miserable. Which we love, that's what we love about her, but like that's all she wants, and to give the character what she wants, like we get to see it that way.
It's an extra layer deeper with her, right. And then later when we get her back, or when she has a moral choice to make in the event that's coming, because she's clearly going to need to, she can't blame anybody else, right? She can't blame anyone for not having her happiness, because she had it. Does she want it? Does that not what she wants anymore? Can she be happy as the person she was?
And where the story goes, you're right. Like, we don't know where this is going for sure. Right. I just was like, that's not my Gale.
Yeah, you just want to get,
Justin gets this version of her for one issue, and he's like, I hate this freaking comic. She's barely in like 7 panels. God damn it.
I want to have a Gale. Come on.
That's my Gale. She needs to chain smoke or I'm out.
Guilty, okay? Guilty. All right, so anything else in this issue you guys want to talk about before we get to the finale here?
We have to talk about the back and forth between the father and daughter, and the jokes about him and his name,
his superhero, his super villain.
Yeah, this was all so great. Like, she is so embarrassed when he says lightning rod, and she's just like, that name is the worst. He goes, it was the 90s, okay?
Yeah.
Once I met your mother, I gave it all up. It's just like, lightning rod. I'm not sure I even want to know what your powers were. It's so good.
I thought the dialogue throughout the whole issue actually was pretty good between the dad and the daughter. And then even when Abraham came into it, it was like, dialogue wise, this is probably the best issue all around, quite honestly.
I do love how, despite my Abe not being my favorite character, I do love like when the father and daughter are arguing, and then he's making comments about what Abe's doing. He's like, Abe starts using the name as well, like running down as an insult. What gives you the right to judge anything we do, Mr. Lightning Rod?
Like, even towards the beginning of the issue, she's like, why did Colonel Weird call you Lightning Rod? And he's like, ... Because for a really short time, like just a few weeks, long time ago, I was sort of a super villain. She's like, of course you were.
I don't know what was super about his villain.
Yeah.
Oh, so good.
I just love her reaction. Like, oh, Dad, of course you were.
I love that she's just like,
John, there's a John in the chat asking, we're talking about the comic book series by Jeff Lemire called Black Hammer, and the sort of main storyline that was called Reborn, which was one of the more recent volumes, because we're almost caught up with where the comic is today. But
I think John was in here when we talked about one of the previous things. This is just Like the book.
If
I
you go
have,
back,
like,
JP's got a playlist of the entire Black Hammer with us reading it. So if you wanted to go back and read it from the beginning, or if you want to jump
it's
on,
a lot. There's a lot of Black Hammer.
It is.
There
It
is.
is.
So
Worth it.
I like the part 2 where he's talking about like, oh, you were a villain. What did he call it? Like a
Abe talking about how that's common.
with like villains and heroes. What did
Opposites
he call it?
attract.
Yeah, but he called this in particular. He's like a something project.
He says,
reform job.
Yeah,
a
reform
job.
Job, yeah.
He's like, they tend, you know, they don't always get married. Let's just say opposites tend to attract. And then she's all gross.
And then he lists off stuff
the daughter. It's like gross.
Yeah.
One last thing too with this, the way this ends, and Abe, when it finally gets back to him being like, oh shit, he's like, he's Insector's like, howdy, names in sector mysteries names in sector mysteries my game. He's like, oh, for Christ's sakes. He's like, okay, we gotta hide the bug out of sight. Get in the truck quickly.
Which I will say, the other thing here is like the sheriff is pulling up, and it's like we don't get any consequences or any play out of that. It just skips ahead to them getting back to the farm, which is like, why did we leave that as a cliffhanger?
Yeah.
Were those two panels was that panel necessary if we're not going to address it? Like, just a weird storytelling thing for me that was like, okay.
I think they just needed a story beat, and it'll probably play out later, like a lot of
maybe.
things that,
Okay.
you know,
maybe. All right. So we jump back into this issue. We jump back to Sherlock and Andromeda and Skulldigger and the colliding universes.
JP.
The two covers for this book, this one and then the one that's an homage to that famous painting that is so phenomenal. So I don't remember the name of that painting.
Wasn't there a cover that had a similar cover like this with Lucy in the Black Hammer costume in the field like this, like way early on?
Oh, there might have been. Yeah,
I think there was.
At the farmhouse, I think you're right.
Yeah,
I think there was something similar. I think you're
I don't know how I missed these covers as they came out. Like some of these are just gorgeous.
Yeah.
They were like 1 in 50 variants or something.
Yeah.
Maybe, but then I like now with whatever the most current thing that is coming out.
The current
end, yeah.
Which I think is actually over, but
I've been keeping an eye on the covers because I'm like, ooh, I'm gonna find like all those other ones we find were awesome. I didn't like one of them. I was like, where are all the cool covers? Like, we've been talking about it.
Come on, every time Black Hammer.
And then what did Jeff just be like? We're not gonna go too crazy on the covers. This last epic ending. I was so disappointed.
So we jump back here, and now after Sherlock Frankenstein has blasted it, and all the multiverse is collapsing. Now the Parliament of Weird show up.
Yeah, the Parliament of Weird. Baby.
Where were they like 5 minutes ago?
Because this is when
it wasn't
they show
part
up.
of the pattern.
Yes, this is when they show up.
The Parazone had them
I
arrive.
love Colonel Weird, but my frustration with, and I get just the storytelling. It's like, if he knows all this crap, why does he always show up 5 minutes late? It's like I'm dealing with like he's John,
but he's basically all right.
Our Colonel Weird in this looks a little too groomed. I feel like his hair is a little too brushed straight. Like this panel, where it shows the Parliament, and then where he's at the bottom, it's almost like he's just like gray-headed Jesus or something. Like,
yeah, he is very like.
Usually his hair is all wild, and his beard's all wild, and this is just very like flowy and like too under control.
So what do we think about the arrival of the Parliament of Weird here from the group? Daryl, what other than Colonel Weird being, is there anything else you think about this? Other than him being too groomed, too with it?
Too with it, yeah. I mean, like
he's still mad.
You're gonna hear about it later. I'm just telling you. Calling me part of the Parliament of Weird. I don't know what that's all about.
I didn't say you're part of the Parliament weird. I said you were
You're
late.
5 minutes late.
Late.
Yeah. Mhm.
You shared a characteristic.
You know, we knew this was going to happen eventually because it left off from the previous book. I
Right.
think the big thing is like what they do to Skull Digger.
First appearance of Space Digger, bitch. This is a book.
Yeah.
Key spec alert right here.
So I will say, here's
For
a,
me, I found that hilarious because
Yeah.
it is legit Cosmic Ghost Rider. Like it is legit making fun of
Like,
the Cosmic
so-
Ghost Rider, and it's perfect. It is executed phenomenal. Like the tongue-in-cheek irony of that moment is like chef's kiss for me. I was like, oh my god,
yeah.
holy crap.
Our buddy Sove Collector needs to own this issue because it's basically the character he loves.
I will say, like, as we get up, the lead up to that moment does again the art, because we see Skull Digger multiple times, and all through the last time we saw him, he had this huge chest wound where he was bleeding out and he was dying, and then like he's like, "Oh, I'm dying," and you look at him and there's not a scratch on him.
The chest wound does seem to come and go.
It's just
It does.
gone.
You're right. Yep.
Like,
yep.
just another
Yeah.
inconsistency of the art here that just
Yeah, it's
was
about as
bothering me.
it's
Like,
about as consistent as JP's Usagi Yojimbo shows.
There's
yeah,
no-
like, yeah.
Boom. There it was.
It's not
See,
my
I told
fault.
you it's coming back around.
Talk
It's coming back around.
to White Whale. Which actually,
Duck-
Alec was not the problem. It was
Watch
the
for
other
that
two-
boomerang
It
because
was the other two people on the panel that were hard to get. But yeah.
me
So-
and Daryl are like, what? You're right though. There's no blood on him
No.
while
No.
he's been
Yeah.
while he's been like dying here.
Yeah, and other times it's like a huge like, oh, did a cannon go through his chest? All right.
Yeah.
Some of the artwork's been like a little hit or miss. I like the detail. Like I like the detail in this, like some of the face expression and things like that. But then like,
Don't you shame my orangutan weird because he's my favorite.
I don't know. I just feel like some of it's just not as detailed afterwards, or maybe
Maybe
it's-
it's just
yeah.
inconsistent.
yeah.
Yeah, it is
That
definitely.
orangutan weird comes from the same planet that we saw earlier with the apes of like
Yeah,
what it was slam.
Oh yeah, that's right. They were like
I love it.
scientists. Those ones. Yeah.
So we get this. The weirds are coming to help. We get Space Digger, and then we
Oh.
jump back to the finale of Lucy's fight with her dad, or her evil version of her dad, and she loses. Like she doesn't get the job done, and he steals her hammer. And basically, he's like, "Well, I can't kill you, but I don't have to save you." So, and he takes off with another hammer, only for her to be saved by Flying Space Digger and his Ghost Rider chain.
Yeah.
it's so good. It's so funny. I love it.
This reminded me, Black Hammer like defeating his daughter and everything just reminded me of Invincible. Got like Invincible vibes with the dad, and things like that. And even just like why they're fighting each other, things like that. Also wanted to point out that we also do get Talkie Walkie, which we like.
Yeah.
We only get so often, and I just like anytime that we get to see her.
Yeah. Talk
Mhm.
in the
especially knowing like what she does accomplish in the future, like with her
Like Brainiac kids.
the Brainiac kids and all that stuff.
Yeah.
All our family.
The Archive, I think, was that character.
Archive.
Yeah, the archive. There you go.
Well, she's basically running the
like Data.
program for the farm. Like that, she's basically been running that program.
So from this, like they're gathering that they're the weirds, but Weird comes back for Lucy after they save her, and he says, "Okay, I'm gonna show you the truth now. Now is when I tell you the truth of what happened to your kids, what really happened." And he takes her to the farm, and she gets to see her kids. And he's like, "This is where you choose what you're gonna do." So, what do you guys think of Lucy's choice? What Lucy does and what she chooses? Daryl, I'll let you go first.
Anticlimactic for this 12 issues of stories and what's hanging in the balance and what she chooses. was very anticlimactic. I felt like.
Justin.
Yeah, I agree. And this all goes back to, like you guys are saying, this is really more of just a setup, 12 issue setup for the main event. And but the way it's released, and if you were to be going into it as just a random fan who's like, okay, I'm going to sit down and read these 12 issues, this, enclosed, moments of Jeff Lemire's story, it's just not, this falls. I felt like it kind of fell flat as well. It also goes back to what I was saying before about, like, I just didn't buy her wanting to be this parent as badly as she's claiming to be or wanting to. But again, even from earlier, but I think it fell flat.
John.
I mean, yeah, I don't disagree that it clearly is a setup. It's prelude to the Crisis on Infinite Earths. So it's, hopefully the next volume is Crisis on Infinite Earths, but at the same time, does it make me more or less excited to read it? Neither. Like I definitely want to read it. Like it doesn't in any way dissuade me from wanting to read it. I do love that it pivots on her having to make this choice. And I don't know that we see her make it. Like, it's partly that she says, when I call for you, I want you, implying that she's like playing a longer game here in some way. I don't know. I do feel like it's a little bit unanswered what she's choosing here. And maybe I got to read it as, if you disagree with me. She basically says, like, I have a chance at the second chance. I'm not gonna. Sorry,
I'm not a hero.
I'm not a hero anymore. You sure? Once you leave forever, I will not return. She said, "You better not." But then she says, "If I call you, I need you to send them here when the time comes, no matter what I say." Do you understand? It's like she's setting something up. It's on the page before.
It's right before she says. Before she tells him, she makes her decision. So I think that's what she's saying is they have to be here no matter what I'm about to say to you. And he's like, I do. And then she says, I'm not doing it. Like, so I disagree with the way you're reading
my interpretation.
Yeah, because I think what she's saying is because maybe hasn't even finalized her decision in her own mind, because you see her say that. He's like, I do. And you, Lucy, and you see her like the panel where she's like eyes down, thinking it through, and she's like, my whole life has been madness since I was a little. And then she goes into her little speech here, and she's like, "I'm out." And so I don't get that vibe that you were getting there from that. To me, it's just that's just the lead up to her decision, and she wants to make sure he's going to do it before she tells him her decision, in case he's disappointed by her decision.
And earlier he said, "This is where you told me to send them." And she's like, "What are you talking about?" And then, like in typical Colonel Weird fashion, and then it like a few pages go by, and then it gets to her saying, "You have to send them here. Do you understand?" And he's like, "I do. I do," or whatever. But so it seems to me like she's not playing a longer game, and she's shown nothing to display that she's playing a longer game throughout this whole thing, like we talked about with her. Evil father and stuff. So that's why I felt like all of this buildup with her for these 12 issues to just end with her saying, I want to stay on the farm. We're outside of the danger zone. See you later. Peace. Like, and I don't blame her. I don't blame her for her decision.
No.
It's just from the story structure of like 12. And are these numbered, like the single issues numbered along with the
I think so. 1 through 12. 1 through 12.
1 through 12.
Black Hammer Reborn 1 through 12.
1 through 12. Okay. So it's like for it to be 1 through 12, and then I assume the current one, the end, is like a relaunch, new number 1.
It's like 1. They've always kind of restarted at 1, like Marvel does.
So I feel like because of that structure, that this does not feel like. I mean, it is kind of complete, but it leaves this other cliffhanger going on that it seems like we're getting this character out of the way of.
I just found it, and this is where I was talking about before. I found it like you guys are saying anticlimactic. I just found it disappointing for Lucy is the character that we'd known to this point. I feel like this is not the decision that character makes. And so I feel like this is I don't know. I feel like the one that she made one mistake and she's basically allowed it to completely. I don't know. And I get that it's just setting up what's gonna her ultimately coming back and blah blah blah. But like to this point, like if you're just reading this point and you're not following the comic trope, it's just I just don't feel like this is set up the way as well as it needed to be for her to make this decision in this moment, I guess.
And it might be that that there's an element of Lemire not earning what you're talking about here. And I think for me, this is as much as you keep saying, like, this isn't the Lucy that we've seen, like this older version of Lucy who has kind of quit on the hero thing, put the hammer away, and then now she's killed somebody, and all of these. I think it's changed her from the version we saw in the original runs, where she was doggedly trying to find her father and all these truths. I feel like she's very much quit on things, and we're getting to that cheap hero trope of denying the call when the call comes. And that's what this dramatic moment is kind of supposed to be, is the dramatic hero denying the call when the phone rings. But of course, later they're not going to get the choice. They have to come back. Right.
And I just don't feel like it. Maybe it's just that it doesn't work for me because it's it just doesn't seem to work for me the way.
I don't know that the beats are as strong as they should be. And so as a result, it doesn't play as intensely.
Yeah.
It's missing JP's Gale. That's what
that's all I need is her standing on the porch smoking with a bottle of liquor going
like cussing a little bit.
How time you guys got here? And then and then it'll be fun.
Yeah.
So then we get the finale, the final 2 pages here of anti-God, the cataclysm has begun, and we're ready for the
dun, dun, dun.
So final thoughts on Black Hammer Reborn. Hello, kitty.
I agree. From the jump, we kind of said this is a weird prelude to an event and doesn't necessarily have the stakes, impact, or emotional beats that it should. There are definitely moments I really liked, but overall, it feels like odd setup and doesn't deliver the way we want it to.
Yeah. Justin, what do you think here?
Yeah, I mean, just big picture, like little moments. I loved a lot of like the dialogue, the husband, the lightning rod reveal, like all that stuff. The humor in that was great. I think that especially like JP, the collection you have. If I had, like, I don't own it right now, but like eventually I do, and I just would hope. I don't know. I guess it's, to me, I feel like it should just be its own thing in a way, and it's just definitely not. Like it's just. It could easily be reprinted with however it ends, and that could be however 12, 15, 16 issue collection or something like that instead.
Daryl, what about you? What do you think of this as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of expressed it before, is like, because what we start with Lucy and it being called Reborn, we're expecting her to go through this journey to where she's going to be the main hero of what's to come next. Since we're not going to wrap up the story, you would expect that she goes on to be in the next one, and maybe she does. So it's as a story called Black Hammer Reborn, I just don't feel like it concludes in like a satisfying way. Like it's so it's not even ambiguous. It's just there's a storm coming, and she is just, I'm not going to be part of it. See you later. And that doesn't feel complete, And
maybe that's part of it. It's just like I get that he's like, oh, I'm giving you this title, but that's not really what I'm doing. And it's like the title being not making sense ultimately to where the story goes. The fact that it is 12 issues of Prelude, I think it's maybe like if this was like 6. If it was just tightened up a little, if it was, well, that would be a lot. But because it is really just prelude to what's coming. And maybe it's, to his point, it's the first half of a 2-part thing, maybe, because I don't know how many issues the end is. Maybe it's 12. So it's a 24-issue event, and he's just seeing it as the first half. And this is kind of the climax. Her decision's the climax, and everything that happens after is because of that kind of thing. which is probably what is going on. So without having read the second half, basically, it feels incomplete, and it doesn't quite hit the notes it needs to land where it ends in this volume for me. But like you guys said, there's a lot of stuff in here to like. It's not like it's not bad. It's just
no. It's not like a waste of time, right?
No, I don't think it quite lives up to what my expectations are at this point of what Black Hammer stuff should be. And that I think that's really just where it's at. It's just a little bit lower than typically what I expect from Black Hammer and these characters. So
I think because especially that first Black Hammer, grouping of them, which I don't know how many issues it was, that ends with them back on the farm in the end, right?
Right.
And that feels like a complete story on its own. And then we got all this kind of anthology kind of stuff in between. And this was supposed to be the return back into the Black Hammer world. And like you said, I think it just didn't meet the standard of what I came to expect from that first chunk of Black Hammer.
All right.
Daryl, we were just talking about low expectations, right? Yes, bar low and everything's
We
It might be a while before we get a hardcover with Reborn or with the end, because I think the end just ended, or
I think it just ended. Yeah,
maybe last. It might be a while before we get back to this. But you guys have any other final thoughts before we get out of here?
Hey, Mom.
I got Kate walking down the hall shouting, "Hey, Mom!"
There you go.
No, that was it. Sorry.
Yeah, no,
you guys are good. Well, I want to thank John for hanging out with us, Perry for hanging out with us for a little bit, Chaos stopped by, not sure who else is still here. Fable stopped by, One Collection, so appreciate it, everybody. So yeah, we appreciate you hanging out, and yeah, we'll be back with more stuff next week. I've got the crew back together. We're gonna be talking Monstrous with the crew that I've been doing that with. We're finally talking Volume 8. It's been talk about inconsistent because we've been waiting on trades. It's been over a year since we've done one of these. So I got to go back and read Volume 7 so I know where we're at. So
gotta get a recap.
Yeah. So appreciate you guys hanging out. And yeah, it's 11 o'clock here. So I'm going to go to bed because Justin kept me up late.
Not my fault.
Almost midnight for me.